Imagine it's 40,000 years ago and you're standing in Neander Valley. It's freezing. And standing in front of you is an individual who looks familiar, but different. I'm Louise, an archaeologist, and this is episode 1 of your Time Traveller's Guide to Neanderthals. I'm not sure how or why you're time travelling to Neanderthals, but today we're covering the basics of who they were, what they looked like, and where in Eurasia you'll actually find them. So first things first, who exactly are you visiting? The Neanderthals are our closest ancient human relatives, and they endured for roughly 350,000 years, which is longer than our own species has even existed. The earliest Neanderthal-like fossils are around 430,000 years old, but the best known Neanderthals, they lived between 130,000 to 40,000 years ago, and that's the period this series is going to be focusing on. At some point we shared a common ancestor with them, but exactly who that is and when they lived is still unanswered and deserves its own separate video. If you like a peaceful holiday destination, you've chosen a great period to travel back in time to. Regardless of when you're visiting, you don't have to expect crowds. Neanderthal society was very small. Genetic evidence has consistently shown low diversity, which really points towards low population sizes. But estimates of how many Neanderthals lived at one time vary massively. But a recent analysis has estimated the number of breeding adult Neanderthals at any one point only 2,400. And to put that into perspective, this is a venue for up to 2,400 people. They also lived in small groups of about 10 to 20. Society structure is going to be covered more in episode 3, but you're arriving in a landscape that is sparsely populated by small bands of Neanderthals. And if you're arriving anywhere onwards of 54,000 years ago, our species Homo sapiens might start popping up too. So now you've arrived into the Neanderthal landscape, maybe you've been searching for hours trying to find a band of Neanderthals to join hopefully before nightfall, and you've finally spotted one in the horizon. You get closer and it's time for your first encounter. They will appear different, but maybe not as different as you're expecting. There's a bit of a Neanderthal cliche that's been used for decades. If you could put a Neanderthal in modern clothing, bathe them, maybe shave them, and then place them on the New York subway, would anyone take note? The answer is probably not. This idea echoes an illustration from 1939 that dressed the old man of La Chapelle Neanderthal in a hat and suit, and suggested that many of the perceived differences between us and Neanderthals were rooted in superficial features like grooming and attire. You would recognise them as human, but just a bit different. You would see that their skull is long and low, with a distinctive bump just above the neck. This is known as the occipital bun. Their most striking feature is prominent brow ridges that are not separated in the middle like ours, creating an imposing look. For years after they are born, their upper jawbone continues growing forward, giving them a protruding face shape, but they don't have much of a chin. Their nose is also large and wide, and this has been suggested to be an adaptation to living in cold environments, to allow cold, freezing air to heat up before it reaches the lungs. Their front teeth are large and regularly used like a third hand, so you might see some scratches on the front of them, and their eyes are significantly larger than yours. Despite the differently shaped skull, the brain inside is just as large, if not larger, than your own. Inside it is organised differently, but just as cognitively equipped as you are. Their height ranged from about 147.5 to 177 centimetres, with an approximate average male height of 165 centimetres, which is roughly 5 foot 5 inches, which is the same height as I am, and they weighed around 64 to 82 kilograms. They are shorter and stockier than most modern humans, and they have a broad chest and wide hips and shoulders, with shorter lower limbs. This reduced their surface area, and has also been suggested to be an adaptation to conserving heat in cold climates. It may have also though been a physique that gave them more power in their arms and legs for close range hunting ambushes. Neanderthals likely had a range of skin, hair and eye colours. Reconstructing individual pigmentation is often really difficult because a lot of different genes interact in the process. But very dark skin is unlikely because getting enough vitamin D at northern European latitudes without some pigment lightening would have been nearly impossible. The combination of red hair and freckles is possible in some individuals. Variants associated with red hair have been found in Spanish and Italian Neanderthals, but those same genes may not have been expressed in the same way as they now appear in modern humans. Analysis of Croatian Neanderthals suggests darker skin, eyes and hair in some southern populations. Multiple Neanderthal alleles now identified in present-day Europeans contribute to both lighter and darker skin tones, suggesting the population itself was variable. Just like modern humans, there was diversity in appearances. If you want more Time Traveller's Guide content, please like, subscribe and let me know in the comments. Now you know what Neanderthals look like, let's look at where you might actually find them, so you don't just arrive and start wandering across the landscape for it to then become nighttime and you get killed by a cave lion or something. Neanderthals are often imagined as a European species, huddled in the cold in caves in France, but the reality may be surprising. Their range stretched from the Atlantic coast of Portugal and the cliffs of Gibraltar all the way to the Altai Mountains in southern Siberia, a span of almost 7,000 kilometres. They adapted to Mediterranean coastlines, mountain ranges, woodland valleys and cold open steppes, so your destination matters. The Neanderthals of Gibraltar were foraging for mussels on the shoreline and hunting or scavenging seals and dolphins, while the Neanderthals of Siberia were hunting bison across the cold, dry steppe. Very different lives. So I'm going to take you through a selection of destinations west to east, with a brief orientation of each. Finds from these sites will likely crop up in the future episodes. On what was once a coastal dune on Portugal's Algarve coast, researchers identified 5 trackways and 26 individual footprints, created by adults and by children slightly over a year old, walking across the slopes together 78,000 years ago. One trackway suggests they were tracking a deer through the dunes. If you arrived here, your first image of Neanderthals would be a family group on a beach, hunting deer in the dunes and foraging coastal resources with the Atlantic Ocean in the background, so this may be one of your beach destinations. Moving along the southern Iberian coast to Gibraltar, where Neanderthals occupied Gorham's Cave multiple times over 125,000 years. Back then, the cave would be about 5 kilometres from the shoreline, overlooking sandy coastal plains with rock cliffs and dunes, which would be an ideal hunting ground. Moving up north to Pontynewydd Cave in Wales, which was inhabited by early Neanderthals around 230,000 years ago. The environment fluctuated between temperate woodland and cooler, more open landscapes as the climate shifted. The cave is well chosen. The main entrance faces west, shielding it from cold northerly winds and allowing direct sunlight into the entrance, which overlooks the valley below. Nearby there is raw materials for stone tool production and a river providing a water source. Neanderthals inhabited Jersey intermittently between 250,000 and 40,000 years ago. For most of that time, Jersey was not an island. It was a prominent granite headland rising above a wide coastal plain connected to what is now France. This would have provided both shelter and a great vantage point for spotting large game such as woolly mammoths and woolly rhinoceros. Lecoq de Saint-Brelard was known for the theory that Neanderthals here drove mammoths off the cliff. However, this has been reassessed and the current interpretation is that Lecoq was more of a processing site rather than a kill zone. This place was definitely remembered by Neanderthals as generation after generation returned. It's worth remembering that a modern map will not be representative of what the world looks like. Britain at this time was still connected to the rest of Europe by a landmass known as Doggerland, now beneath the North Sea. If you've watched my guide to Doggerland, you've already met the oldest resident of this lost world, Kryn, a Neanderthal dated to roughly 50,000 to 70,000 years ago. Moving into Central Europe in Croatia, around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals used this limestone cave in the hills, surrounded by temperate woodland, river valleys and a mixed forest landscape. Shanidar Cave in the Zagros Mountains of northern Iraq was used as a seasonal hunting base by Neanderthals roughly 75,000 and 45,000 years ago. This would have been more mountainous, rocky, warmer and arid than anything in Western Europe. The main species hunted here was the ibex, an agile mountain goat which still grazes nearby today and is often seen coming into the cave to drink at the spring, as do hyenas and wolves. Neanderthals here also hunted small game, including tortoises, fished in the Greater Zab River nearby, and collected snails and gathered plant food. Further east in Central Asia, Teshik-Tash cave sits at around 1,500 metres above sea level in the mountains of Uzbekistan, a high altitude shelter and a strategic hunting spot for the surrounding mountain landscape. That one's for you rock climbers. And finally, the eastern edge of the known Neanderthal world is in the Altai Mountains in southern Siberia, where Neanderthals occupied Chugutskaya, Oklenikov and Denisova caves across multiple periods, approximately 120,000 and 40,000 years ago. The environment here is harsh, with cold and dry open steppe tundra, but as with most sites, the environments likely fluctuated throughout time. Regardless, this was a completely different world to the footprints on the Portuguese beach. Neanderthals might have even made their way even further east. Stone tools discovered in China resemble Neanderthal technology used in Europe, yet Neanderthal remains have never been uncovered in East Asia, so the big question is, how did this technology get there? I hope this has given you a taste of Neanderthal destinations and how varied, vast and changing the Neanderthal world was. So make sure you choose carefully of when and where you want to visit. Which part of the Neanderthal world are you most looking forward to exploring, and is there a particular destination that you choose? Let me know in the comments below. And this is just episode 1 of the Time Traveller's Guide to Neanderthals, and there's going to be 10 in total. You can find further reading linked down below, and you can also support the channel on Ko-fi. Thank you for exploring the distant past with me. There's always more to uncover, and I'll see you in the next video.